Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take those big, dense ideas and, well, pull out the key insights you need to really be in the know. Today we're focusing on René Descartes, 17th century philosopher, probably best known for, I think, therefore I am.
Right, but that phrase, it's honestly a massive oversimplification of what he was about.
Okay.
Our sources show Descartes wasn't just, an abstract thinker locked away somewhere. His main goal was actually quite political and intellectual, too. He was trying to build a completely new philosophy, one that really worked with the new quantitative sciences popping up in his time.
So he was kind of like the philosophical support system for the scientific revolution, building the concepts it needed.
Exactly. You could almost call him its midwife, yeah. He was providing the conceptual scaffolding.
But why did the old scaffolding need replacing? What was wrong with it?
Well, the dominant system back then was scholastic philosophy, largely based on Aristotle. And it relied on things like substantial forms, these complex inherent qualities.
Like saying a rock falls because it has heaviness?
Precisely. Explanations based on qualities. Descartes wanted to just sweep all that away, get rid of the vague stuff and replace it with measurable facts. Shape, size, motion, how parts are arranged.
Okay.
And that ambition, trying to fundamentally replace the basis of European thought, that's what earned him so much hostility from both Catholic and Calvinist theologians. Relentless hostility.
Oh, wow. And yet, despite waging this huge intellectual war, the picture we get is of him living most of his adult life in, well, relative seclusion, as one source puts it, mostly in the Netherlands.
Yeah, it does paint a picture of a solitary figure, doesn't it? Fighting these battles through letters while pursuing this incredibly wide range of interests: optics, math, theology.
A complex guy. Okay, let's dive in. So where did he come from? Let's start with his origins. Descartes, born 1596. His family had this strong legal tradition, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
His godparents, his uncle on his mother's side, his older brother Pierre, all lawyers. So the path seemed pretty clearly laid out for him. Become a lawyer.
And he got a top-tier education for that era.
Oh, definitely. He went to the Jesuit College of Flèche, a really renowned school, from about 1607 to 1615.
What was the focus there?
It's still
Aristotle?
Well, yes, they respected Aristotle, but the curriculum heavily pushed rhetoric and philosophy. Remember, they were training future leaders, administrators, lawyers. So the emphasis was on clarity, distinctness, certainty.
Those sound familiar.
Exactly. The very qualities Descartes later tried to elevate into this universal method for all knowledge. The seeds were planted there.
But after college, he wasn't satisfied, was he? He had this sort of intellectual crisis.
Profound disappointment, yeah. He looked at philosophy, all the different schools, and just saw constant arguments. Disputed and consequently doubtful, he called it.
And the philosophy was shaky.
Then the sciences built on it must have foundations that were so weak. That's how he saw it.
So what did he do?
That crisis really fueled him. He figured, okay, truth isn't in the old book, so he decided to look elsewhere. Two places, really. Externally toward nature and internally within himself.
Starting over.
Completely. He felt he had to build a foundation that was, quote, entirely my own.
Which brings us, I guess, to that really famous moment, the dreams he had. November 10th, 1619. He was traveling, billeted somewhere in Germany.
Nuremberg, yeah. That night was the turning point. He described himself as being full of enthusiasm. He believed he genuinely discovered the foundations of a marvelous science.
Wow.
And right then and there, he decided, ditch the old logic, apply a rigorous mathematical method to everything, a universal way to find certainty.
Okay, but here's something from the sources that really surprised me. It clashes so much with that image of pure, cold reason. Early on, around this same time, 1619, he was actually looking into occult stuff. Natural magic.
It's true, and it's crucial context. We have letters where he's writing to his friend Isaac Beekman, asking specifically about things like Ramon Lull's brief art.
Which was like a system for combining concepts.
Kind of a mystical combinatorial system, yeah. And also Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. He was seriously asking if these held some kind of secret key, to unlocking all knowledge.
The guy who invented analytical geometry is asking about Renaissance magic for a universal key. How does that work?
I think it just shows how desperate he was to find any path to certainty that wasn't the failed scholastic one. He was exploring all the alternatives floating around back then, including these sort of mystical Neoplatonic ideas.
But he didn't stick with it?
No, not for long. Importantly, he rejected them pretty quickly. He later dismissed the Lullian arts as just sophisms and Agrippa stuff as idle fancies. He realized the path wasn't secret codes, it was open, demonstrable reason. Math, basically. So, okay, he has his method, now he needs to apply it. And he does, introducing this revolutionary mechanical worldview in physics.
Or the clockwork universe idea, kind of.
Basically, yeah. He wanted to explain everything: stars moving, hearts beating, using only matter in motion, no need for special hidden qualities. Just 4 things you can observe or measure: motion, size, shape, and how the parts are arranged.
Very different from Aristotle's quality.
Totally different. And he supported this with 3 fundamental laws of nature.
Okay, bye.
First, inertia. Second, the idea that motion is transferred when things collide. And third, that things naturally move in straight lines unless something interferes.
Let's pause on inertia for a second. That first law. Philosophically, what kind of bomb did that drop on the old Aristotelian world?
Oh, it was huge. A complete rejection of the classical cosmos. For Aristotle, things needed a constant push to keep moving. Motion wasn't natural. Rest was the default state.
Right.
Inertia says the exact opposite. An object just keeps doing what it's doing, resting or moving, unless something else acts on it. By bringing that in, Descartes basically eliminated the need for constant divine nudging or inherent tendencies to keep the universe running. It became a self-sustaining machine in theory.
But this grand theoretical ambition runs smack into reality in 1633. Galileo. The church condemns him. Descartes is writing his big physics book, The World.
And the news about Galileo just stops him cold. Absolutely.
He must have been terrified.
Profoundly shaken is how it comes across. He immediately pulled the manuscript for The World, didn't publish it. He was worried, for his safety, his reputation. That's when he adopted that motto. Bene vixit qui bene latuit. He lives well who lives in secret.
And our sources stress he really did defer to the church, didn't he?
He did. He explicitly stated he wouldn't defend his scientific ideas against the authority of the church, even if he thought his science was right.
So that caution then shapes his next big work, maybe his most famous, the Meditations from 1641. What were the goals there? Still proving God.
Yeah, the stated aims were pretty traditional. Prove God exists and show that the mind and body are distinct things. But the method, that was the revolution.
And that's where modern philosophy almost kicks off, right? The first meditation.
You could definitely argue that. It's where Descartes basically teaches the world how to doubt. Radical subjective doubt. Doubt your senses, doubt the world outside, even doubt math. Tear everything down until you find that one single point you absolutely cannot doubt.
I think, therefore I am.
That's the end point, yeah. But he was actually worried about the process itself. He worried that introducing such powerful skepticism might disturb weak minds, that people might get stuck in the doubting part and not reach the certainty he aimed for.
And were those worries justified? Did people buy his arguments for certainty, especially the God proofs?
Well, no, not universally at all. His critics were so unconvinced by his proofs for God's existence, particularly, that many suspected he was actually a closet atheist.
Seriously. They thought he was trying to show you couldn't prove God with reason.
That was the accusation, yeah, that it was a clever trick. So, despite wanting security and tranquility in the Netherlands, he was just surrounded by controversy, constant intellectual fight.
Who were the main opponents?
He was getting it from both sides. The Calvinist theologian Gisbert Voetius was a particularly nasty and public critic, but also Catholics like the Jesuit Father Bourdin, the calm in charge, atheism, or at least fostering libertinism, because his mechanical universe seemed to make God kind of unnecessary after the initial creation.
Okay, so he's fighting these public battles. But let's shift to a really key intellectual relationship, one conducted entirely by letter, with royalty, no less.
Yes, Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia, a truly remarkable figure. Their correspondence started in 1643. She was so sharp intellectually that he actually dedicated his big systematic work, The Principles of Philosophy, to her in 1644.
And she wasn't just a passive recipient, right? She challenged it.
Oh, big time. She zeroed in with laser focus on the biggest, most fundamental problem in his whole system.
Which was his famous dualism, mind and body being totally separate things.
Exactly. Mind is pure thought, unextended. Body is pure extension, unthinking matter, 2 fundamentally different kinds of stuff.
So what was Elizabeth's killer question?
It's a classic. She basically asked, okay, if mind and body are so different, how on earth do they interact? How can the non-physical mind possibly push around the physical body? Or how can physical events in the body cause feelings or thoughts in the non-physical mind? She said the connection just seemed, well, inconceivable.
Ouch. That's a pretty devastating point against the core of his metaphysics. How did Descartes handle that? Did he have an answer?
Honestly, Not a fully satisfying one, and he kind of admitted it. He essentially had to concede defeat on the level of pure rational understanding. He suggested that while we can't fully conceive of the union logically, we constantly experience it.
How so?
Particularly through things like passions, emotions, we feel sadness, joy, anger. These seem to be mental states caused by bodily events, and they, in turn, can affect our bodies. We live the union, even if we can't perfectly explain it.
And this whole line of questioning from Elizabeth actually led to his next book.
Directly. It spurred him to write The Passions of the Soul, published in 1649. In it, he tries to tackle emotions systematically. He treats them as passions, things the soul experiences passively because of what's happening in the body.
He tried to give a physiological explanation involving something called animal spirits. What were those exactly? Sounds a bit mystical.
It does sound weird to us, yeah. But for Descartes and many in the 17th century, animal spirits weren't ghosts or anything. They were thought to be extremely fine, fast-moving physical particles, like a subtle fluid derived from the blood.
Okay.
They supposedly flowed through the nerves and into the brain, carrying sensory information and commands for movement. It was his attempt at finding a mechanical, physiological bridge between the thinking mind and the moving body, a way for them to communicate within his own framework.
Fascinating. So his system is being attacked metaphysically by Elizabeth, and at the same time, his physics is being tested in the real world. The most famous example being the experiments by Blaise Pascal.
Right. Pascal's experiments with barometers, particularly the one carried out on the Puy de Dôme mountain.
What did that show?
By taking a mercury barometer up the mountain, Pascal's brother-in-law showed the column of mercury fell. It was shorter at the top than at the bottom. This strongly suggested that the weight of the air pressure, was holding the mercury up, and there was less air pressure higher up.
Which contradicts Descartes.
It did, because Descartes believed space was completely full of subtle matter. He didn't really accept the idea of a vacuum or empty space caused by air pressure alone.
How did Descartes react? Did he admit he was wrong?
Oh no, not Descartes. He remained completely confident. He argued that Pascal's results were actually perfectly consistent with his own principles of matter and motion, just interpreted differently. He even sort of claimed, maybe stretching the truth a bit, that he had been the one who suggested the experiment to Pascal in the first place, even though he never published similar results himself. Classic Descartes, really. Hashtag, outro.
Which takes us then to the final chapter. A bit sad, really. Despite clearly wanting to retire, to have peace and quiet in his little hermitage in Egmont, he gets this invitation he can't easily refuse.
From Queen Christina of Sweden in 1649. Yeah, it turned out to be a terrible decision for him.
Why? What happened in Sweden?
Well, first, the Stockholm climate was harsh, especially for someone used to the Netherlands. But the killer was the Queen's schedule. She insisted on philosophy lessons with him at 5 o'clock in the morning in winter.
5 a.m. That sounds brutal.
It was completely against his lifelong habits of sleeping late and working quietly. The strain, the cold. It seems to have weakened him. He caught some kind of flu-like infection, pneumonia perhaps, in early 1650.
He died.
He did. In February 1650, just a few weeks shy of his 54th birthday. Apparently he refused the common medical treatment of the time, bloodletting, which might or might not have helped, but it sealed his fate.
So he spent his life seeking quiet, avoiding controversy where he could, trying to get official approval, especially from the big theological faculty at the Sorbonne in Paris.
He desperately wanted their stamp of approval, yeah, to legitimize his system.
And he never got it in his lifetime.
Never. But here's the great historical irony. The ultimate proof, the sort of seal of recognition that his ideas were truly revolutionary and influential, it came after his death. In 1663, the Catholic Church put all of his published works on the Index of Forbidden Books.
Banned by the Church.
Exactly. And that condemnation wasn't just swatting away some minor heretic. It was a sign that Cartesianism, his whole way of thinking, was seriously challenging and actually starting to replace the old scholastic traditions he had aimed to overthrow from the very beginning.
So, in a way, being banned proved he'd succeeded.
In a very real sense, yes. It showed he'd shaken the foundations just as he intended.
He definitely achieved his goal of challenging the status quo, even if the recognition was posthumous and negative.
Yeah.
His whole project, right from those early days, was incredibly radical. Throw out everything you think you know and build it all back up from scratch, starting from, as he said, a foundation that was entirely my own.
Which really does leave us with a final thought for you, the listener. Imagine you had to do what Descartes tried to do. Discard every belief you hold. Push away anything that could possibly be doubted. Where would you start? What would be your one single, absolutely undeniable point of certainty?